Buckle up, excellence junkies, because this podcast is definitely for you. Welcome to Rocket Fuel. Do you wish that you could surround yourself with people that love to kick ass just like you? Well, come to my party, baby, and meet some of the brightest stars in the entrepreneurial galaxy, because it is my mission to give these entrepreneurs a platform to declare what they are on this planet to accomplish and to show you why they are rocket fuel. And we're live! Welcome to the Rocket Fuel podcast, guys. Today we have an amazing discussion for you gutsy gals out there. I mean, any of our listeners, those high achieving women, they kick butt. You're usually the strong gal there, but you kind of wear your heart on your sleeve. You're the nurturer. You're always taking care of everybody else. And as you're progressing in your business, in your life, you're like, there's something more. Why am I not achieving the more that I feel I am destined for? And so today we are talking to the prima gutsy gal, Miss Roe Couture DeSaro, who is dedicated to helping women like moi who need to kind of start looking inside to figure out what's blocking them. So Roe, thank you so much for joining today.
You're so welcome, and I'm so happy to be here. And everything you've said, it's almost like I feel like I could go home now.
No, I want to stop people. I want to make sure the right people are listening to this episode, because you have so much to give. What's interesting, I do want to point out that obviously the folks that listen to the Rocket Fuel podcast here, they understand that I curated this community called Rocket Fuel, and it's really folks that are experts in what they do, and they give with heart. They want impact, and Roe is part of that community. But guess what? I met Roe long before that. And actually, you talk about how long have you been in business, by the way, Roe?
My first actual business was in 1989.
Yeah.
So that's a long time ago. But this business, my coaching, my facilitating, my mentorship business is from 2013. So
oh my goodness.
Going on 8 years.
And then you also moderate the women's
E-Women's Network, E-Women Network.
Yep.
Network. It's a women's business organization. It's 20 years old. We're about 500,000 women strong. I partnered with them to really run New Jersey and to get the New Jersey entrepreneurs on board to be collaborative power partners and build business and grow together, because you cannot do business alone, right?
Yeah. So, but what's really interesting about that is I mean, you were an established entrepreneur. That was clear. I met you through that networking opportunity, but that it was just clear to me that you were a connector, right? And you yourself, you're an extremely nurturing person. You're really looking out for others. And so I'm kind of interested in your journey into Gutsy Gal, right? Gutsy Gals Get More is your focus right now, and your coaching and your support organization. How did you get to that point, though, and actually focusing on women that need to get gutsy to get to their next level?
It's interesting that you say I'm a nurturer, because that's not something I ever always thought of myself. I was more of the type A type personality, so I'm a recovering
You're
overachiever. And and the connected part of me is that I love people.
Yeah.
But what happened to me at a young age is that I just got the message very early on that society has got it all wrong about women. That women were not being put on this pedestal, and men were. And because of my Me Too movement, remember, I grew up in the 70s, so very common. This is even before sexual harassment days. But because of my Me Too movement, I was seeing a not so nice side of men. And then my mom was the only mom that worked in the neighborhood. She went to work. She had 5 kids. Went to work when I was 3 years old. I was the youngest, so we were from 3 years old to 13 years old, and she took a full-time job.
Wow.
Yes. And she's 92 today, going strong. She takes senior
Good
citizens
mama.
traveling all over the world. So I grew up with this very independent, strong woman, and even my grandmother, all my Italian, I say my Italian broads, right? The Italian broads that I grew up with.
Uh-huh.
And so when I graduated college with a psychology degree and I did a lot of study on men and women, it was really clear to me how society was messing up both sides. I literally, my
Mm,
thesis was about, I felt sorry for men and boys because they were forced to be the breadwinner. They were forced to go out there and do all these things, where I was looking at what women were like given the okay to have the playground. But
interesting.
but I didn't want the playground. I wanted work. I'm a driver.
Ah, uh-huh.
I've had a man tell me I had to drive of a Lamborghini. He says he was a branch manager of AXA, and he took me out to lunch, and the manager says he's never taken anyone out to lunch that's looking for a job to be a life insurance consultant and a financial planner. And he took me out to lunch because he says on my test, he says, I've never met a woman with a drive like yours. So he goes, I want to know, I had to know what you're all about. So
So have you met my
having,
mama?
yeah, exactly. So having all this, I just felt that this isn't fair, and women can do what a man can do. And
Mm,
I said, okay, I'm going to prove this. I didn't think I was this. It had nothing to do with my intelligence, had nothing to do with my smarts. It was just like this strong feeling of like, I was pissed off.
yeah.
I was pissed off. And this is why, like, find out what it's about, because let me tell you, that's probably what you're going to stand for. And that's probably what's going to move you to your success in your business. But so
Yes.
I was pissed off. And then I said, well, where can I go prove it? Where are we making? And I wanted to make a lot of money
Mm-hmm.
because all my friends were commodity brokers. They were working down. I wanted to be the first commodity broker, and that
Oh,
that was a really dog eat dog world. And
yeah.
even the men were like, "You no, you don't want this. You don't want this. Just go to Wall Street, but don't go in the pit." Especially a physical pit with men and being the first woman. Trust me, you don't want this. And I kind of, after hanging around the commodity exchange for a couple of months, I kind of agreed with them. I'm like, yeah, I don't think I want this.
Right,
so,
right.
so I went to Wall Street and I said, I'm going to go to Wall Street and figure this out. And within 6 months, I had a promotion, and I wound up breaking 3 glass ceilings at E.F. Hutton and Company. And
Wow.
I was this little girl in her 20s from Brooklyn, New York, who just had like, I had the guts.
Yeah.
I had the guts because men were coming on to me my whole life, and I've been pushing them off. It gave me that muscle to push them off on Wall Street. And
Mm.
if I could secretly tell you, or it's not going to be a secret anymore, but one of the things I did was I wasn't mad at men. I was mad at society. So
Yeah.
I wasn't this angry woman, which a lot of the women back then were the feminists and they were angry. I didn't try to dress like a man. I didn't try to act like a man, but I put them in their place with a big smile, and I
Mhm.
got respect. So when a
Mhm.
man came on to me, they were in their 40s. I mean, I'm in my 20s now, and I looked at them and I
Mhm.
went, you couldn't even handle me.
Uh-huh.
So instead of being like crawling into my shell, I stood
Yeah.
up to them, and they respected that. They were like,
Mhm.
"Ooh, who's she? I like her."
Right.
And yet I looked like a female and acted like a female, but in the sense of like I didn't act like a man. So they
Right.
respected that as well. They said, "We want to work with women. We just don't want angry women, and we don't want whiners, and we don't want brutes. It's kind of like we want, like, be yourself and you'd be
Right.
fine." So way before authenticity was a word, that's how I showed up in the 80s, and that's how I broke glass ceilings.
Yeah.
And then, back in like early like 2011, 2012, when I was feeling that there's more,
Mhm.
there's more, my intuition just kept on screaming at me. It was that same thing of like I started looking, I started networking, and I was hanging around women business owners and entrepreneurs, and I noticed that it was still the same scenario. I was
Mm,
literally thinking that that was when I worked in the 80s. It's not today.
mm-hmm.
But when I saw it, I got pissed off again.
Yeah.
So that's where, it all came around, where, because I lost my $1 million business because of 9/11. I was there on
Ah,
9/11. I actually literally ran from the second plane,
mm,
and being in that environment and running for my life, it really, that's like, it's like COVID-19, something strong to put perspective
yeah.
into, like, what happened with COVID. It's like, put our perspective as to, like, well, what really matters, what's important
Mm,
in life. And our life could be gone in a second. Like, what am I doing? I'm chasing money, I'm chasing freedom, like, what is going on? And that's when I did some soul searching. That's when I did the real work. That's when I did, okay, why am I here? What am I supposed to be doing? What is that more? And I just
mm.
questioned, what is that more? And that's when I started working with coaches and started working with some professionals, and I dug deep into my soul, and that's when pretty much what I thought was what I wanted all along is what came out. So that was a huge validation for me. And then
Right.
this is my calling.
Yeah.
And
So
once I
this,
owned it, that
yeah,
everything changed.
yeah. And so I want to unpack like so many
There was
things
a lot there.
that you said. No, it's beautiful. Um, and reminding us that the people that I hope are listening to this Rocket Fuel podcast, they are excellence seekers, right? The people that want to live business and life on level 11 optimizers, right? So inherently
Hmm.
we have a lot of driven people and driven women, that are listening to this. And I find it very interesting how you were extremely successful. And a lot of times people still feel like, how the hell are you unsatisfied? Look at all these things like on paper, right? And so what happens is we kind of suppress when we feel like there's something more, right?
Hmm.
We suppress because
Hmm.
we're like, well, look at this. Like, I've accomplished all these things. And sometimes as a driver, you're just driving, like, no matter what you do, you're kicking ass at it. Right.
Hmm.
And I see that in you. No matter what you do, you're kicking ass at it. But there's this like unbridled drive. Like, it's not focused anywhere. You just have that fire within you to do something. And then all of a sudden that experience and running from the building, and you have this opportunity to look back and say, holy crap, all of this could have stopped. And did I leave my mark? Did I do what I should have done? And it's unfortunate that we in our lives need something to shake us up. um my hope
Absolutely.
is for people to not require something like that, to listen to somebody like you and your story to say, oh shit, like, am I going to wait for like somebody to die or some like drastic thing, or am I going to recognize that, guess what, this feeling that I have inside of me, like, I can listen to it. I can take my drive and just refocus it on the right thing that also feeds your soul, not just your wallet.
You're so spot on, because there was two things that happened. In the 90s, I wanted to go into coaching, motivational speaker, when it was
Mm.
just being born. But I convinced myself to do it through a direct sales, through a network marketing company. I
Yeah.
convinced myself, oh, I'll coach my own team. I'll do this because, but I didn't realize at the time that was just me playing small. That was me being afraid to actually step into that solopreneurship, into that intellectual property arena, into that arena where I'm creating my own products instead of
Yeah.
selling somebody else's. So I was holding back. And then the other thing is, I always said, all we ever really want to do is be happy. But I really recognized that I was chasing money, I was chasing freedom, I was chasing
Hmm.
happiness. But what I really, 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 really was looking for was, A, was love,
Mm.
and B, was fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what your calling gives. It's different than passion. Passion can make you feel good. It's just like, you can feel good. But when you
Ooh.
find your calling,
Mm-hmm.
you could really, it's where the rubber meets the road, because then you can make an impact, you can make a difference, and you can have that fulfillment, and you could self-actualize, and then start to have it all, where
Mm.
it's in your lifestyle, it's in you as a mom, it's you as a wife, as a confidant, as a friend, all of that, it all starts coming in together. But
Yeah. This is, I mean, this
those
is
are the
great
things.
because it's not saying, like, if you're not doing these things that are aligned with your calling or whatever, you're not being disingenuous. It's you're just not aligned, right?
Right.
And it takes that pause to do the inner work, to recognize that, and there's a level of disruption that we all kind of have to hit. Like,
Mm-hmm.
I call it like disruption, like it's like an energetic disruption, right? Where you're like, something's just not right. Where we have to do something about it, or else we're freaking depressed, and it doesn't even matter
Yeah.
like how wonderful life looks like on the outside. And clearly, I'm connecting with what you're saying, because I left a very, very high paying job in a pharmaceutical company. I'm like, what the hell? Like, this is like, it like checks off all the boxes from when I was little. I'm like, oh, I get to carry around a
Mm-hmm.
briefcase, and I'm dressed up in a suit, and all these things, and I could pay for trips to my parents to go to Spain and all these things, and I was still not satisfied. Like, what the heck?
Yeah. I mean,
Um,
exactly what happened to me.
yeah. So
I mean,
it's like,
I was partner with E-Trade.
yes.
I was a partner on Wall Street. E-Trade was my partner. I had a contract with E-Trade as a partner, and making a lot of money and running the show. And I was like, and that's why I even say, like, before 9/11, it's like, the reason why I saw the first plane and I kept running into work is because I was a partner. And that this was the best of both worlds. I finally made it on Wall Street
Wow.
and a entrepreneur at the same time. And then
You
I
saw the
say,
first
or
plane,
so
and
I
you're like,
thought.
I still have to. I'm dedicated. I still have to make it there to
I have
the
to go in
office.
because I'm running the show.
Mm, mm-hmm.
And that's what I say, or so I thought. I thought that's what I
Mm-hmm.
wanted. I thought that was the dream job. I thought that was the end all to be all. But that
Right.
was, when you look at it, it was all outside sources that were giving me this false impression of being fulfilled and
Yeah.
and happy.
Yeah.
And like you said, when you're making darn good money, that happiness can kind of get camouflaged.
Exactly. Well, there's definitely more to talk about here, but I don't want to keep this from our audience anymore. Everybody knows there's always a catchword as part of the episode, because our guests have so much to give, and this is our way of being able to facilitate them providing you with more than just this episode. And Roe was just magnificent. I'm going to bring up this call to action, but she put together this guide to. This is like the first step of actually knowing and understanding and appreciating your value. And Ro, you spent a lot of time in helping these really successful women pause to do the inner work. And so this is an amazing gift that you've provided our audience, just to start chipping away at it. Okay. So to get the Gutsy Gal Success Series, this is the guide to knowing your value. This is just the first step, chip, right? But I invite you to text RF-Gutsy, RF for rocket fuel, -Gutsy to 411321. If you're in the US, make sure to provide your email address when we ask for it. So the number is 411321. The message is RF-Gutsy, all one word. And when you provide that email address, instantly in your email, you are going to get this guide. You talk so much. What I loved is, even in the beginning of the piece, you started talking about the difference in how men and women kind of approach the same like situation, and it was really kind of revealing. Before we get into that, because I would love for you to explain your thought process on this piece, I also want to offer our international audience the opportunity to text for this. So you can use the number +1 909 741 1321. The message is RF-Gutsy. and provide your email address to receive this. So tell me a couple of the things that you recognized were different on how men and women kind of approached certain situations.
And this is backed by science. This is backed by numerous studies. So this is not just besides me experiencing it, witnessing it, and seeing it. It's also backed. I just want to let our viewers know this is also backed by science.
Mm-hmm.
This is also backed by tons and tons and tons of studies.
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to see women. We're the ones that are graduating college the most. We're the ones that had the most initials after our name than anyone.
Interesting.
As a species. I mean, you look at a woman and she's got like these letters and these letters and these letters.
I'm trying to compensate.
We're trying to overcompensate.
Yeah.
And so we started looking at these studies. It's like women are deep down confident. So many times they just don't know it. They just don't perceive it because of society. And when you look at it from a psychological point of view, men overcompensate because they're super aggressive, they're super confident, and then they overcompensate in other areas, and that shows up as failure because they'll do something really fast without putting thought to it, and they could easily produce not a lower quality product because they're so used to being in that competition and being the first and getting it done, and they have that's their personality. Where women, we're the gatherers, we're the problem solvers. So we want to gather all the information. We love to research. We're very smart. We love to gather all the information and then come up and assess the problem and come up with a solution. And we come up with the solution really, really well. The problem is we get these gender blind spots that men want it like, we want it now, bottom line. Like, and if you don't answer now, you're weak. If you don't answer now, you don't really know what you're doing. If you don't answer, instead, women, if it would only just, speak up and say, listen, you give me a day or you give me 2 days, whatever you need, I will come up with a better solution than you can because I will do the work. I will take the time. I'll do the work. I will get this done. I'm just not going to get it done like the way you want it.
It's not the same way. Yeah.
Yeah. So what happens is men, we create shame-based meanings when we don't have success, when we have failure, when things aren't working well, and it's been because we've been raised that way. So shame-based
women
meaning
in
that
general.
we blame ourselves.
Oh, gotcha.
We blame ourselves for the failure. We blame ourselves for not speaking up. We blame ourselves for not saying what I just said, how we could speak up.
Yeah.
And men will never blame themselves because they weren't taught that way. They weren't taught it. It's their.
This is a behavioral and a societal sort of impression as well, right?
Yeah, and it creates triggers in our brain, and then that triggers in that brain creates the perception. The perception creates the identity of who we identify as, and then that identity mixed in with your values will create your thoughts, which will create those beliefs, which will create those habits and those behaviors. So the problem a lot of people make is they try to change the behavior without changing the identity. You can't change the behavior if your perception isn't changed, if your belief isn't changed, if you can't change your habits. And so this is why you try to work so hard. You burn the midnight oil, you'll do everything everyone tells you to do because you're just trying to change the habit and the behavior. Because as women, we're using this, it's I'm doing something wrong.
Right.
It's me. I'm doing something wrong. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not ready. I'm not worthy enough. And so therefore we create and we try to change things without changing our inner core. And
because a lot of it subconsciously. Like it's not like we're in some cases I could definitely hear myself saying, oh well, what did I do wrong that resulted in that, and and obviously it's good to think that way too. All of these components are fine at a certain level, and then it's like when you do a little bit too much of one or the other. But
it's because of our beliefs. It's because of our belief system. And if you read Lean In with Sheryl Sandberg, she showed a study. She had a group of men and women in a room. They told a story of an individual, a high achieving individual, individuals like a leader going out there and getting things done. To one group, the name of the person in the story was Harold. The other group, the name of the person was Heidi. Nothing else changed other than the name, obviously a male name and a female name.
Uh-huh.
The group at the end saw Heidi as conniving and like, we don't like her. She's this ambitious, like, I don't know. She's too ambitious. Who does she think she is? Harold loved him. Oh my God, he's such a great leader. I just want to be like him. Men and
Whoa.
women, men and women in the room, not just men
Right.
in the room, men
Right.
and women together saw this. So it's clearly the society behaviors and the norms, and we don't see this, so we blame ourselves, and it's really not our fault.
Yeah, and I think that's also why, unfortunately, um, other women in the corporate environment, I see that it's definitely improving, but as I grew up in corporate, I didn't necessarily find other women as my allies, right? Because there's this like they were battling with this mindset, and when I reflect upon it, I was probably 20 years younger
Mm-hmm.
than the women that I was very thankful for, because they kicked some major ass to get to where they were. But it took me a while to recognize, but guess what? Their journey was very different
Yeah.
than mine was. So when they saw me having perhaps some more freedoms, in expression versus what they had before, it was difficult for them to see that was an evolution, because they were kind of in that environment. But to get to back to Gutsy Gals, because clearly we could talk tons and tons about this,
Right.
but it's the fact that you understand this is critical in how you can support these high achieving women that are struggling. Because when when you are kind of type A, aggressive, the driver, all that stuff, I find that at least early on for me, there wasn't a lot of inner work,
Mm-hmm.
right? Because I was actually taking on masculine traits to survive in a masculine world. And
Exactly.
so, a pause of inner work, what do you really want, connect, like none of that stuff was really like in my realm. And probably the greatest, even though I may have had some epiphanies here and there, the greatest change is when I finally tapped in to a mentor, an expert, or coach that was going to take me along that process. And so for you, Gutsy Gals, you said started in 2013.
Yes.
Okay. And so what was the evolution there? Did you offer one-on-one coaching immediately, or how did you kind of start supporting women in this way?
I offered one-on-one coaching, and I was starting it doing mostly with the inner work. And in 2013, the high achieving women, any woman, any businesswoman at that point did not see about and understand about working on the inner transformation.
Mm-hmm.
And I would get they would roll their eyes at me.
Mm.
Even if I would say, because I've been advocating that women can have it all for 40 years,
Yeah.
they
I
would
mean,
they would be like, that's impossible. And they
right.
would debate me how that's impossible.
It's like, all
it's like
righty, we're going to have to do
sacrifice.
some foundational work before we can even.
This is like sacrifice. And
That's so
and
funny.
what happened is I would get women, they wouldn't, they would buy coaching, but it was just struggle to get high, like they wouldn't pay what the value of it was.
Mm-hmm.
And I had several successful, 7-figure coaches at the time telling me, because women don't invest in personal development, women don't invest in their inner transformation. You need to become a business coach. So I shifted and I started incorporating business coaching and marketing and creating messaging and your signature system and all of that, and and
Ooh,
create your niche.
This is good stuff. I'm sorry, I have like tingles in my body, so I have to. So we need to listen to this. Um, even though the most transformational work that you do is helping women finally dig through the inner, do the inner work, the inner stuff that is going to help them finally be realigned, and then things will start clicking. You have to, my camera just blurred on me because I'm moving my hands so much. For those of you that are listening, you could care less, but I move my hands a lot. But you couldn't get them with that message first. So you have to like go in through the back door, the side door, and say, "Oh, I can help you with your like, why are things not working? Maybe it's your messaging, maybe it's your branding, maybe it's," and then so you could get in there and be like,
and that's exactly what was happening. So they would come in now to, as you know, for the business strategies and the business consulting, and then I as I'm working with them, I'll be like, I was feeling, this is where the nurturer of me comes in, that
yes,
I'm doing them a disservice because you're not going to implement what I'm teaching you because you have all these limiting beliefs. Because you
are not going to implement
challenges.
Because you have these limiting beliefs. I just wanted to reinforce that.
Thank you. Thank you. So I said, okay, ha ha ha. Every time I would teach a business lesson, I would teach the mindset first behind it. And that was fine. And it was working for a while. It was working. But then I was like, you know, as I grew and I became more of a transformational coach, and I started learning how women really transform. I started seeing what really works with women. And I became kind of got better and better and better at that. I didn't have enough time to do the mindset piece and the business piece for the amount of time they were hiring me for.
Right.
Like we would need a year.
Yes. Yeah.
And so
I would argue you need more than a year to change the stuff that we've been programmed with.
And it's exactly true, because what I'm finding now is finally women have, especially with COVID, has helped this. Women done a lot of reflection. The message has been getting out there. But what's happening is will never call myself a mindset coach, because that is superficial.
Right.
That is just like scratching the surface. And now what I'm finding is women are starting to understand that they need to invest in themselves, but they think they could take one like confidence class or one mindset class and they're done. Now you and I know that.
Nope.
Not gonna work.
You got two strong type A driven ladies telling you nope. Right? So
not gonna work.
Yeah, so we need to do that special call out. I want to confirm though, do you serve, your focus currently are entrepreneurs, or do you work with women that are also high achievers in their professional in career, as employees?
I work with mostly entrepreneurs, but I am starting to work with some corporate women as well, because they're just finding me and coming to me, and a couple of the different things. I'm also, my destiny project right now is dismantling the masculine success system that women are inheriting, so that we don't inherit it and we have more of a unity power, and women and men can learn how to work effectively together. They could understand our power. We could understand their power, but they could also understand the feminine. The future is feminine, because all of this means we need to embrace our feminine. So
yeah, male or women.
Men do too. Exactly. Yeah. Quite frankly, men do too. So because I'm working in that world, that's opening the door for me for a lot of corporate. So a lot of corporate women are starting to come to me.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And I could see the value there. But right now, what we're going to focus on are calling those entrepreneur women.
Yes.
I'm calling out, if you're listening to this podcast while you're driving or doing some work, I tell you to stop, right? Yeah, if you really feel like you're hitting this kind of invisible brick wall, right? Like there's something more. I love that you mentioned to me when we talked earlier before this podcast, heart on your sleeve, nurturer. You feel like you're helping everybody else. You're like, you need to work with somebody else to help you get to that next level. It's critical. It took me 10 years in business to finally start working with a business coach. And I was angry at myself. Like I was like pissed off. Like, why the hell did Wanda, did you not find this earlier? And then I also reflected back, and this is part of my mission here as Rocket Fuel. I was angry that I wasn't aware that these people were out there to accelerate my growth.
Right.
And so here in this podcast, knowing that you want to get to that next level, this is Rocket Fuel. Ro, you are Rocket Fuel.
Yes, I'm Rocket Fuel.
You know, and it's evident. It's evident in what you say. It's evident you've been around in business for a long time, supporting these women. And so I'm inviting you to just start learning more about what it takes to be a gutsy gal and start opening up and starting to do that inner work. So
and it's the gutsy gal with a heart. It's the gutsy gal the woman's way. It's the gutsy gal with grace and ease. It's the gutsy gal that's going to have you work half the time and create double the results.
Woo, Nelly. I like it. Yeah. So pull out that cell phone right now. You do not want to miss this guide to starting to know your value, to recognize that you weren't just lucky. You weren't just lucky to get to where you are right now. Text RF-Gutsy, GUTSY to 411321. If you're in the US, don't forget to provide your email address. How are you going to get the goods if you don't provide the email address, right? So text RF-Gutsy to 411321 if you're in the US. If you're listening internationally, please text to the number +1 909 741 1321. The message is RF-Gutsy. Thank you so much, Ro, for joining us today. Any final words for those gutsy gals that are on the fence?
You know, it takes guts to be an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
But it takes guts to know what to do in what order. And the order is your own inner foundation of who you are. Your own inner side. It's time to stop creating your own mess. That's it.
I'm just going to shut up right there. All right. That's amazing. Ro, we definitely need to have you back on. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you, Ro, and I hope you, listener, have a rockin' day. Talk to you soon.
Thank you so much. This was wonderful.